Without further ado, please welcome Nick Bogacz.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you, Pete, Bill Oakley, and the whole team of Pizza Today. Thank you very much. Very honored to be here today. I think when you hear about the story of Caliente, you can see that 7 years we've done 5 different stores and opened up these locations, built a great team out, and you may think that it happened overnight. I think that's how sometimes the story comes off. But the truth of the matter is, for the 16 years leading up to that, I heard a phrase an awful lot that I'm sure many of you guys have heard over the course of your career. And that is, can I just see a show of hands if you've heard this phrase? That you don't have a real job. Have you heard that before, working your way up? I know I did for sure. But as I look out here, I see real relationships and real friendships and real mentorships and real passion and real pride. And for a lot of us, a real purpose in our lives. And my grandfather used to always tell me something as a young boy. He said I could be anything that I wanted to be. Oh, no, wait. That was Mr. Rogers. My grandfather used to tell me it didn't matter if I was shoveling manure or whatever I was doing, to just do my best. And I'm glad that I ended up doing pizzas rather than manure. But I always kept it on my mind to, no matter what I did, just to do my best. So that's kind of where everything has taken me to this point. So I'd like to share with you today how it all started. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with my mom, my dad, and my 4 brothers. And today I brought my mom with me to be able to see the keynote. So hello, Mom. Great. And as a young youth, my brothers were very good at baseball. They were very good at floor hockey and different things like that. And as you can see, I'm in the white there as a skinny beanpole, and that turns out to be one thing, coach. So I ended up as the coach of my brothers, and I was volunteering all the time at the local youth foundation. And I didn't realize it, but at a very young age, I really embraced the leadership part and found out different qualities about myself, that I liked being the leader and I liked being their coach. And I had a lot of different practices for the team and the youth at night, and really worked my way on the rise of building teams. That was what I did at a young age with my brothers. We would always win the championships and be the team that everybody wanted to be on. And really, sports played a great deal into my life as a youth. And then in 1996, I got my first delivery job at 17 for Pizza Outlet, which in our area had 44 stores when I started. Over the 5 years that I was with them, they built it to 124 stores. So there was a lot of growth, but I was way too young to feel that growth. My whole journey was a pizza driver and then working my way up a little bit. And really what happened was I was sitting at the lunch table and at school, and I said to my friend, I said, "Hey, man, I'm making great tips at the car wash." And he said, "Well, I'm making way better tips delivering pizzas." And I said, "I better see what this delivering pizza thing is all about." So I went down and I told the guy who was sitting across the table from me, the manager, I said, "Hey, I can work 3 to close every single day being your delivery driver." I bet we wish that somebody would walk in and say that to us, right? But I did. And he said, "You're hired." And then he said, "How old are you?" And I said, "I'm 17. And he said, "You tell nobody." So, of course, I started that Wednesday afternoon. Friday night, I took the pizza out, got so excited, walked it out to the car, put it in, started driving down the road, really excited. My first delivery on a Friday night, boom, I wrecked my car, And as soon as I wrecked my car, I came back, and he's just pulling pizzas out of the oven, doesn't want to talk to this young kid who wrecked. He could care less about me. And, eventually I said, "Hey, I wrecked my car." He did my money, sent me home. I went home and said, "Mom, can I borrow your car? I want to deliver pizzas." And "Thank you, Mom." She said, "Yeah, take my car. You can go deliver pizzas." So I kept delivering pizzas again. You're going to see that the wreck in the car was kind of a theme here. So I went ahead and I delivered pizzas for about another 6 months. And in those 6 months, I worked on a team at this particular store that had about 40 people working. there was probably about 20 of them were delivery drivers. And I think we know they're some of the best characters are delivery drivers. And it was real interesting because if you were the new guy, they would say things to you like, hey, if you give me $5 tonight, I'll get you out of here 10 minutes early. So, as a kid who wants to go out on a Friday night, you give them $5 and all they did was walk over to the manager and say, hey, send the new guy home. And meanwhile, you gave him $5. And it was just kind of like a real fun place to work. There was hostesses and there was waitresses and there was bartenders and there was just a whole staff. And what happened was I fell in love with the team atmosphere. It felt like a sports team. And like I said, I wasn't very good at sports, but at this pizza thing, I felt like I was a pretty darn good delivery driver. I learned the map like the back of my hand in those days. I knew where all the payphones were, so when I got lost, I could hop on the payphone and call. And I was, in these 6 months, I became like one of the #1 delivery drivers. I was able to find different routes to navigate through the delivery area. And this was the way it became. I became a very good delivery driver. Well, of course, 6 months down the road, I was pulling out and smack, I wrecked again. So at that point, I'm like, all right, I've been doing this 6 months. I wrecked twice. And I said, Mom, can I use your car again? And she said, maybe you should work inside instead of delivering pizzas at that point. And I said, okay, that makes sense. So my manager said, hey, you are great at knowing the delivery area. Why don't you learn the oven? And that was where I cut my teeth in the industry for probably the next 3 years or so. I worked the pizza oven. And Friday nights, the 20 drivers would line up and I would pull all the deliveries out and say, these are your 2, these are your 2, these are your 3, here's 1 for you. They would complain about having 1 because you know how that goes, but I would have it all set up that they were perfect runs. And then something happened. The corporate store sold it to a franchise. And when the franchise came in, being a young kid, I was like, I don't want to be with the franchise. I don't really like the change or the new franchisee. I'm going to go back to being a driver. I thought that was the right move, even though I was working my way up to shift leader and such. So when I started going ahead and being a delivery driver again, you can guess it didn't last long because you know what happened. But what happened was about 9 months in, I come around a bend and a kid pulled out on a bike. And I missed him, but his friend hopped out on the bike too with a rooftop sign, pizza delivery sign on top, bam. I crushed the kid. He went up over the roof. It was horrible. And for a 20-year-old kid, it was just awful. It really was. And all the cops came, the ambulances. Thank God he was okay. And they went ahead and his dad came and his dad said, "You're not wearing a helmet." He was so upset at his son, but didn't really care about me. It was bumps and bruises. Nothing was wrong. I think Pizza Outlet took the kid at Jerome Bettis, signed football, and that was the end of it. But I went back and I said, and I forgot to mention, that was in my mom's car too. So, but then I said, that's it. No more delivery for me. And that was the truth for about 10 years. Then I got real serious and I decided to work my way up into the management system. And what happened was in 2000, I had my daughter and I decided I need to become a general manager. That's where I was. I was an assistant manager. The franchisee was the owner, the general manager. I needed to work my way up and work my way into management. So the second place I went to is on the right there, Fox's Pizza, which is a Eastern United States independent franchise. And the guy who hired me had 12 properties. He was kind of like a slumlord. And he bought pizza shops because he was going to, they only cost $1 and he could sell them for 12 and he's going to get rich. So that was why he opened up his pizza shop. And he said, hey, I want you to be the general manager for this pizza shop. And he was the kind of guy that when somebody would come in and say, hey, here's this bill for the penny saver I did the week before, he'd say, Nick, go and talk to him. And I'd go talk to him and he'd hop in his car and drive away out of the parking lot. That's just the kind of guy he was. But he was also the first guy that opened up all his books and he showed me what it costs for the dumpster, what it costs for the light bills, what it costs for the employees and how to break down food costs. He showed me every single number. And that part of it always stuck with me. It was the first time that I understood that the pizza industry was a business. And then he took the kiss of death for a lot of people. He bought the second store and he just couldn't manage 2 different stores. And he came to me and said, Nick, he said, I'm going to have to fire you because I'm going to close the stores in about 3 months. And I was crushed. I didn't know what to do. I at that point had my son, so now I'm 22 years old with 2 kids and, out of a job. So I kept looking online and trying to find another position, and I landed at Papa John's in 2002. And I went in there and I really enjoyed working for Papa John's. It was difficult because I was so young, and when I went to get hired, they said to me, do you think that you're going to be able to manage all these kids that are 16, 17, 18, 19? We don't think you will be. And I said, look, I have 2 kids at home. I need this job. This is going to be, my future. I need this. And they said, okay, we're going to give you a chance. And I got in there, and I put 80, 90 hours a weekend, like many of us have. And I was just grinding as hard as I could. And every single month there was 4 stores in Pittsburgh, and there was 8 out in Ohio. And we would drive out to Ohio for these meetings, and they would go to these meetings. They say, hey, Art from Ashtabula is up 10%. Everybody clap for Art, and they would. And the next month you go out there and they say, hey, Joe from Youngstown, he's up 12%. Everybody clap for Joe, and everybody would. And what happened is eventually the 3 guys that are all older than me that I'm friends with to this day would drive out to Ohio for these meetings. And they said to me on one of the meetings going up, the supervisor's thinking about firing you because your oven's dirty, your walls are dirty, and they're thinking about getting rid of you. And I said to myself right then and there that sales fixes everything. And I bought the Guerrilla Marketing book. I went to the bookstore and I said, I need a book to learn how to build sales. And I read it front to cover. And I can't say there was anything in particular that stood out, but the idea was that you're out there trying to get business. And that's what it really did for me. It was one of those books that I read. I was like, I have to go out and get business. So we went to the next meeting after that, and they said, Nick's up 10%. Everybody clapped for Nick, and they did. We went to the next meeting, and they said, Nick's up 20%. Everybody clapped for Nick, and they did. And we went to the next meeting. They said, Nick's up 42%. Nick, tell everybody what you're doing. And everything changed. And I told them, I said, what we were doing is we were doing a thing called hot selling at that time. The pizzas were cheap 18 years ago. You're selling, a $6 pizza we would take to the big box stores and all the construction sites. I had 3 drivers that came every single day to the store. Before anybody called, I would give them 30 pizzas each. So they would have 90 pizzas going out the door that nobody even called for. And then they would sell them for $6 a piece, and the driver would keep $1. And what I would tell them is at the end of the week, if you sell your 30 pizzas every single day, I would call Outback and say, hey, can I get 3 steak dinners? And I would give the steak dinners, you sold your 150 pizzas, you sold your 150, and you sold your 150. They would get all their tips plus their steak dinners. And when you think about how much money that kind of added to the whole part of the sales, then I went to the football stadiums and I got into the concession stands. And I went to the school lunches and pitched the school board and got into the school lunches. And I went to the basketball stadiums and got into the concession stands there. And before you knew it, the store went from a $6,000 a week store to a $12,000 a week store. I doubled it in 9 months. That's what happened there. And the next thing that happened was a guy came in the door and he ordered a pizza off of me. And he left and he came back in and he gave me his card and he says, I'm from Domino's and I want you to come work for us. You're killing us up the street. And I said, buddy, look at the wall. I had sales record week plaques all over the wall. I said, I'm not going anywhere. And that card just burned a hole in my pocket. And at the meeting with him when I called, he told me the FREDDIE WEHBE story. And for you out there that don't know who FREDDIE WEHBE is, FREDDIE WEHBE was a franchisee with Domino's who went to college and he bought the single store there in Gainesville, Florida, the University of Florida. And he built that company to 5 stores. And he was the busiest Domino's franchisee out of all of them. He was the sales builder. And it just intrigued me that this guy could drop out of college, open up a Domino's that was doing maybe like 8,000, 9,000. And now they were so busy that they had to bring in tractor trailers on a Saturday and pack the place make the tractor trailer their walk-in cooler because they were so busy. And I said, man, that's a heck of a story. I said, Papa John's doesn't have anything like that. They're just talking about numbers, numbers, numbers. I want to go somewhere where I can be somebody and build, I want my own thing. It sounded like Domino's was just handing out franchises for anybody. Not the truth, I would find out, but that's what it sounded like. So I went ahead and I joined Domino's, and I took over a store that was closed. We opened it up the first week. It did $3,000. A year later, I had it doing $13,000. It was on the south side of Pittsburgh. And the guy who had told me the FREDDIE WEHBE story left the company. He sold his ownership and moved out to Wilkes-Barre. And about a year and a half later, he called me and said, hey, my general managers are making very good money in Wilkes-Barre. They're making bonuses. And I said, well, I've heard the bonus story at this point in my life a long time. And I was like, they're not true. They can't be making that much money. And he said, I'll show you the W-2s. So I drove all the way over to Wilkes-Barre in the same day, and when I got there, they went ahead and showed me the W-2s, and I said, wow, these guys are making great money. And we went ahead and picked up our family, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and put them in the car, and they sent us a moving truck. And the day they sent us the moving truck, the owner of the company called me, and he said, the Southside Domino's is giving me a lot of trouble about moving you. He said, they're really upset. And I said, well, look, I didn't ask, you guys asked me, and I haven't made any promises yet at all. I said, but I'm going to promise you that all the headaches that you've had are going to be worth it when I move there. And when I moved there, they did something really cool. Steve, my buddy, or the owner who hired me in Pittsburgh, who is now the director of operations there, said, we're going to send you down to Gainesville, Florida, and we're going to let you work in FREDDIE's store for a week so you can see how a college campus store runs. And then we're going to get you back up here to run our Wilkes-Barre store, which is King's College and Holy Cross College, and let you run a college store. And I said, how awesome is that? But the only bad part was I left my wife and kids with, new babies to go all the way to Florida for a week. And we went down there, came back, everything was great. And I put 80, 90 hours in again. And in a year, I took that store from 14,000 to 25,000 in just a short time, just cranking it out. I mean, we became the store that was open till 2 a.m. when I took over. Now we're open till 4 a.m. It was just a crazy college store. And Sunday nights, everybody would come in from the 8 other stores, and they'd bring their paperwork in and give it to you. And when they came into my store and they'd go to give you their weekly paperwork, my team would just break down, do big chants and cheer, and everybody's like, this guy's crazy. Like, our teams were just built into the dynamic of being the busiest store we could be. And I think that's really what took over there was, I just always wanted my teams to feel like they were part of something. And I think that's, what I learned at a young age there was you just have to get everybody to buy in. And I worked for a great franchisee there. They had Christmas parties and summer picnics, and they recognized people as they worked there longer. They had shirts that said years of service. Like, a lot of ideas that I've taken for Caliente came from that franchisee. You felt part of something really, really special. And at that point, it was 2005, and I was working my way in my middle 20s, and everything seemed like it was just perfect. Except for we were miles and miles away from home. And the part of the story that I usually tell is that, we were homesick, and that's why we moved back. But the truth is I developed a really bad drug addiction and alcohol addiction at that time. And my wife and kids, they said, that's it, we have to go home. And, I was left with nothing. And I said, boy, I worked all these hours, and, found myself in just a bad spot. And I said, well, I'm coming home. And, I thought my wife needed the counseling, not me. But when I went to the counseling, they said, you need some rehab, and you got to get right. And I said, okay, I'll go. And I put a good bit in. In October of this year, I have 14 years and clean and sober, drugs and alcohol. Thank you. And I think that's where the story began, for me, really. I mean, all that other stuff was me being young and just really enjoying the business. But I think as I got into it, that's where it took over, because then I was like, okay, I'm clean and sober. My family's right again, finally. I'm gonna do what everybody wants me to do now. I'm gonna get a real job. That's what everybody wanted me to do. Get out of this pizza thing, go get a real job. So, okay. So I go in and I talk to a radio station. I said, I want to sell advertising. And they said, okay, that's great, but you've never sold anything before. And I told them my story of how I sold to the school board and the concession stands and all this stuff. And they said, well, you can't sell. All right, we're going to put you in. So I went ahead and I started, for 6 months, I did the radio thing. And I found out really quick that I hated it. I hated the office. I hated the fact that I had to go and try and sell a furniture guy advertising, and he didn't know who I was, and the cold calling was horrible. Anybody that can do cold calling, you bless your heart, because that's not for me. And I just couldn't do it. So I did the next natural thing. I didn't use my mom's car, but I went back to delivering pizzas. And there was a little shop across the street from us, and I started delivering pizzas there. And I was doing it right towards the end of the advertising because I knew it was going to end. And I started delivering there, and then I called my buddy who was in the car with me from Papa John's, one of those managers. I used to go on the meetings. I said, can I deliver for you as well? And he said, sure. So I started delivering for him, and I started delivering this other shop. So now I'm working two jobs delivering pizzas. And I was delivering a lot, like 80 hours, 41 job, 40 the other, delivering nonstop. Actually bought a house delivering pizzas. I claimed every single tip I made. I mean, I was a delivery driver. That was my real job. You know, that was it. I was a full-time pizza delivery driver, and this is probably like 2007. You know, so that was it. I mean, I was hustling in the morning at a college store, taking all the orders to Pitt, big giant orders. At night, I was just a suburban pizza delivery driver, and I was fine with that. But you know, I kept hearing all the echoes of, you know, I have to find that real job. And real job number 2, I took the post office test and I became a mailman. So real, I had to have 5 jobs at once. And when I got the post office job, I kept the 2 delivery jobs. They brought me on as like a temp. And when I went there, they said, oh, this is great. You know, you can work here 30 years and then you can retire. And what I realized was that's where dreams go to die. It's the truth. Like, it is the hardest job I ever had. So I don't mean any disrespect to anyone's parents who ever have delivered mail. There's a lot of them. But the thing is like, it's true. You go there and you realize, okay, in 30 years, I can just retire. Like, for those 30 years, you gave up on everything. And it wasn't for me. And I was delivering it to 2 places. I was doing the mail. And then the guy who had the first pizza shop opened up a second one. So I started delivering there. So I had 4 jobs. And then the guy at the post office said to me, hey, I count money at the Civic Arena at night. Would you want to come and work in the count room? And I said, sure. So then for the next 2 years, I had 5 jobs, 80, 90 hours a week. And I worked them all every single day, just grinding. But what I learned at the post office was, I'm not going to do this forever. I love pizza, and I don't know why it is that I'm good at it, but that's what I'm good at. And if I'm going to do it forever, I have to do it for myself. And I made that decision at the post office. I worked there for 4.5 years. And if I never worked there, I would have never made the decision to finally take the leap. It was just so painful working there that every time I went in, I said, that's it. I would tell everyone, I'm going to open my own pizza shop. And they started calling me Pizza Boy. And I said, that's it. Like, I'm going to open my own pizza shop. And I think they were so used to everybody going in there and saying their dreams that got crushed that they realized, they thought that I would never do it, you know. And it was so nice when I did leave. They bought me a nice cake and said, you know, congratulations. And I made a lot of great friends there. And they all root me on Facebook too. Every time we open a new store, they're like, we wish you were with us, like, or we wish we were with you. They were so happy that it worked. And it just was a thing that with those 5 jobs, I was trying to figure out, how could I, you know, not have 5 jobs? Well, eventually what happened was my friend who I made for a long time at the Papa John's, the ownership came and said, we're going to fire your friend. Would you like his job? I said, no, that's my friend. And I kept the 5 jobs. A year later, they came to me and said, we're going to fire the guy who took your friend's job. Would you like his job to be the general manager? And I said, well, you know, they knew my history. And I said to them, I would, because I'd like to, you know, maybe I can go down to 2 jobs, the post office, full-time, and full-time general manager. But I can't work 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 hours a week anymore. The deal I can make is if you never say a single word about my hours, I will make it worth it for you guys, I promise. And they said, that's fine, we don't care what you work. So I went into the store and I learned the most important part of the equation for me was to delegate. Because now I couldn't be that guy who worked 80, 90 hours a week there because I had another full-time job. So I had to learn how to delegate to my managers and how to really build a management team and work with them. And the store was there for 22 years and it made $27,000 in profit. And I took it to $147,000 in profit in 1 year. And the way that I did it there was it was the University of Pitt store. And what I would do is I would make up a flyer that said, order 5 or more pizzas, it's the professor special. And you could get your pizzas for $9.99. And I would go to Pitt and I would slide one under every single door of the professors, and then I find their mailboxes and shove them in there. And I go over to Carnegie Mellon and do the same thing. And next thing you know, the whole entire mornings were just packed with these 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 pizza orders. And I took the store, like I said, from $27,000 in profit to $147,000 in profit. The store was there for 22 years, and it never did $1 million. In 2011, I took it to $1 million. You can see that's an old picture. So, but it felt so great, it really did. And I said to my owner, he had 4 Taco Bells, 5 Arby's, all kind of other interests. He was really just a businessman. That's what I didn't like about Papa John's that I loved about Domino's. Domino's was guys that came up in the business. Papa John's was just numbers guys, businessmen. And I said, hey, if you could pay me close to what I make at the 2 jobs, I'll never leave. I said, I'll be your general manager forever. And they said, no, this is what we pay in the industry for a general manager, and that's it. And I said, okay. And I had called Papa John's and I said, this is who I am. This is how great I am. I want to be a franchisee. And they said, oh, that's great. You'd be a great franchisee. What's your net worth? What the heck's net worth? I said, I want to get with you guys to build my net worth, not have net worth to open a franchise. And they said, well, that's not how it works. And I said, you know what? I have to do it for myself. Like I keep telling myself, I've got to do it for myself. And there was a delivery driver that had worked for me that was 10 years younger than me. He worked with me for about 6 or 7 years. We became good friends. And he said to me, I'm going to rack my credit cards. Let's rack them up. And he said, let's go in 50-50 to business and let's buy a pizza shop. He says, I see something in you. Let's do it. And I came back and told my wife, and she said, that's crazy. We don't want to partner. We never want to do this. Like, why would we do it? And I said, well, worst case scenario, we can go 5 years with them and then we can buy them out at the end or something. We'll have money then. I said, but this is the only chance that we have to open up our own pizza shop. Like, this is it. Like, I don't want to partner, but this is the opportunity we had. So I said, I came back and told them, yeah, let's do it. So I started walking into pizza shops in the city of Pittsburgh around the Pitt campus where the Papa John's was. And I would say, sell me your pizza shop. And they would say, get the hell out of here. And the 5th shop I walked into, they said to me, my buddy has a place for sale across the river. And it was about 5 minutes from Pitt's campus. I walked in, I was so excited. And it was a bar. And I said, oh, it's a bar. And I walked in the back, full pizza kitchen, everything I needed. We sat down, all the numbers lined up. And I like to say for the next 6 months, I kept saying, all I wanted was a pizza shop. But the truth really was, my wife said to me when I said, we're going to buy a bar, she said, are you going to be okay? And I had 7 years at that point. And I said, it's a means to the ends. This is our opportunity. This is it. And I said to my partner, are you going to be okay? Because he didn't have the proper rehabilitation, but he tried to stop drinking times before. And he says, I think I'll be okay. And that really should have been the warning sign. And we bought it September 14th of 2012 with a partner. And by Thanksgiving, it was a shame. I had to go to him and say, you got to go. You can't be here anymore. He couldn't stop drinking. As soon as we took over, he went from being one of the hardest workers I know to the biggest drinkers I knew. There was times where he would just do crazy things, like stuff that you would never even think of. But there was the breaking point for me was one night I worked all day. 17, 18, 19 hours a day. And I came home, and I finally was able to go home at midnight. We were open until 2, and I was laying in bed. He was supposed to close, and my mother-in-law called and said she went there after bingo, and nobody's there, but the store's wide open. So where the heck is the owner at, the other owner at? And my wife had to go in. And, she said, you worked all day, I'll go in. Andrew was bartending at the time, so she went in, and we were the two really running the whole place. And she went in and closed the shop, and he didn't show up till 5 o'clock the next day and said, oh, I passed out in the middle of the road, and I tried to fight the firefighter, and they maced me. And I was like, what the heck? And all these crazy stories. That was just one of probably like 25 crazy stories in that 2.5 months. Like that 2.5 months felt like at least 2.5 years. It was crazy. And there was another time where, he was bringing guns to work and hiding stuff in the ceilings, throwing knives. Like I go downstairs and he threw knives all against the walls, like just crazy, crazy stuff. And I remember one night going home to Ange and saying, that's it, I give in, he wins. I don't want it anymore. And it was about 4 a.m. And I woke her up and she said, why are you so distraught? And I just told her some crazy story that he did. And she said to me, you're not giving up. This is your dream. You're not giving up. And I said, okay, that works. Let's do this. So I went into him and I said, you got to go. It doesn't work. And he said, oh, that's fine. He said, I'm done anyway. He had about $12,000 into it. So and I didn't really have, all the money at that time was, I was one of those guys who worked all these hours, but we had a house, a mortgage. I had never bought new tires for my car. We drove $500 cars I was the king of $500 cars. And so when he said that he had $12,000 racked up on his credit cards, I didn't know where else to go but to mom and dad. And they said, sure, well, you can pay them off and we see how hard you're working. And I went to the guys we were going to buy the business from and I said to them, hey, we're going to get rid of the partner. And they said, well, Nick, we see you working so hard here. Why don't you see how much money you can come up with in 9 months and then over the next 5 years pay us off? On a handshake. No, nothing. There was no paperwork or anything. It was all a handshake deal. These guys I feel indebted to forever. The 2 guys that I bought Caliente off of. It was, shop that they opened for 9 months. They put the name Caliente on it. There was a Turkish and an Indian guy, and I had said to them, why call it Caliente? And they would laugh. And then the next time when I said, why'd you call it Caliente? And the Turkish guy said, in Turkey, the #1 strip club is called Caliente. So that was, kind of how we ended up with the name and everything too. But so we got rid of the partner, and the guys gave me the sweetheart handshake deal, and Ange and I went to work. We felt like it was our dream now. I felt, honestly really bad about the partner thing because he believed in me. So it was bittersweet that he wasn't going to be my partner anymore because it was somebody that was willing to put his, rack his credit cards or put his money up and put us together into this whole plan. But it just wasn't meant to be is what it was. So we went to work, and the next part was, we had to come up with recipes for success and make the whole menu and everything like that. And as you heard, a lot of my history is Papa John's and Domino's and other franchisees. So how does a guy with, no culinary experience or anything like that make up a pizza recipe? And really, it was very simple. I love pizza. I know what a good pizza tastes like. So that was the whole way we framed our menu was off of taste. It wasn't having hand-down past generation of recipes. It was taste. And I also had a very good friend that was a very good fine dining chef. And I would say to him, here's my dough recipe. How would you put it into order? And he'd say, as far as baking, this is how you'd put it into order. And I would say, okay, I have this recipe. Would you add anything to it? And he'd say, well, add a little bit of thyme and a little bit of salt and help me out with the wing recipes and stuff like that. And he said, for my restaurant, we buy off a little Italian guy. And he would take me down there to meet the guy. And I decided I wanted to be different. I wanted our pizza to be like a Billy Joel song. If you hear Billy Joel on the radio, you know it's Billy Joel. When you bite into our pizza, you know it's a Caliente pizza. That was what I wanted. I wanted it to be something completely different. So I didn't use the distributor that everybody used. I didn't use the sauce that everybody used. I used a good brand sauce, maybe that a lot of people use, but I used their spaghetti sauce. It's a little chunkier, and I mixed our spices in, and it's different. And when you eat it, you know it's a Caliente pizza. All those things I did different to separate ourselves. And that was the whole idea. And we brought our family down. They were so proud of us. And we'd say, okay, taste the dough recipe. And they would taste it and say, oh, it's good. And then I would mess with it a little more and call my friend, and he said, yeah, you can do this to it or that to it. And then eventually they say, our dough's great, stop. We do the same thing with cheese. We tried all this different cheese. And then eventually we landed on Grande. I didn't really know anything about Grande. We just landed on it. For whatever reason, it tasted great. And I know the reason now, because those guys put a lot of effort into what they do. And it's just a superior product. And it tasted so great. And then the next step was, we worked on the sauce. And like I said, we had a chunkier sauce. Everybody said, boy, that's great. And we had a pizza that some people tell you the crust is great. Some people will tell you the sauce is great. And if you're a cheese guy, you'll tell us the cheese is great on it. That was how we built everything, was off the pizza. And then a really crazy thing happened. Everybody opens up a pizzeria, and the first thing they say is, my pizza's the best. And they think that that's going to bring everybody in your doors. And I realized that I couldn't be that guy. I couldn't do that. That wasn't how I was going to bring people in. I had this bar that I had to figure out how to make the bar a part of the whole equation here. And what I did was, I started researching like crazy. I would figure out that if you could get these specialty kegs and put them on tap, you could bring a ton of people into your restaurant. So I don't want to say I forgot about the pizza, but I hired a very good manager and put him in the back, showed him how we were doing everything, and let him run the back of the house. And I came out front and focused on the beer. And I needed to do that because I had to build it up to where we could keep the lights on and keep everything moving, and it was going to be through selling the alcohol. And I realized early on that craft beer was the movement. And this is back 2012, 2013. So we started doing all kind of different events. Rather than bringing in promo girls like everybody else was, we brought in local brewery reps, and we did brewery events on Friday nights. Every single Friday, we were bringing in somebody from a brewery that was talking about how different things work at the brewery and what the beer tastes like. And we were just really working the craft beer scene. We became the #1 destination in Pittsburgh for craft beer. We were, and still are, a beer bar to a certain degree. At that point, 100% degree. I mean, we were known as a beer bar. People were surprised when they ate our food. They said, wow, this is a great pizza. But they didn't come for the pizza. They came for the beer. I put my pride on the back burner. Not even drinking or anything, I said, I don't care why they come in. I just want them to come in. This was my dream. I need to fuel it any way I could. So I became the beer expert. There were customers that would come in after knowing me for 3 years, and when they found out I didn't drink and could tell them exactly what their beer tasted like, they couldn't believe it. And it was all research, and it was because I knew there was a bigger picture. The bigger picture was getting recognized for our pizza. It was to pull this whole thing together, but I brought them all in through the beer. And what happened was we entered our pizza into a local competition for the news station. And this is where marketing is really important. We won 3rd place. But for me, well, I'll back up 1 second. And I think this is a cool part. It was the beginning of social media with Facebook. And I had figured out in 2013 how to do sponsored ads. So when they ran this Facebook competition saying, vote for the best pizzas, I went ahead and put $100, $200, $300 on these ads saying, vote for my pizza, vote for my pizza. And before you know, we got all these votes. And we became the 3rd pizza to win this contest, 3rd place. The first 2 were there for 50, 60 years. So people obviously picked those places. But what I did was I took the 3rd place one and changed it and put, the news station named us the #1 new pizza in Pittsburgh, rather than saying 3rd place. So just kind of changed it around. And what happened was, for a guy that I'll feel forever indebted to as well, showed up, and I was sitting there. I never do my paperwork at the bar, but for some reason I was. And there was a guy eating a small pizza. And I said, oh, are you enjoying the pizza? And he said, it's pretty good. And I said, okay. And he says, I'm Scott Anthony from Punxsy Pizza and Pizza Today. And I told Scott probably the same story that I just said. He didn't get a breath in. I just told him the last 30 minutes, rambling on about it, how happy somebody was there from Pizza Today. And I was telling Scott, and Scott has become a great friend. And thank you to Scott so much. He opened my eyes to the whole independent side of the pizzeria. And if it wasn't for winning that little contest and promoting it as the best new pizza, I don't know that I'd even be here. It was something that it just happened. It was a great feeling. And next what happened was Scott said to me, Tony Geminani's going to be doing a book signing. And he's coming to Pittsburgh because of PenMac. A lot of the products in his pizza Bible you can get at PenMac. And he's going to do a book signing there. Would you like him to come to the restaurant? And I said, absolutely, I'd like them to come to the restaurant. And I did the smartest thing I could. I gave free beer away for people to come. And I went ahead and we made his pizzas out of the Pizza Bible and gave those away, free slices too. And we packed the place. I mean, top floor. We have a bottom floor, like a speakeasy, packed it. Tony came in with Scott. It was so great to meet Tony. At that point, I only had seen him on all the late night shows, throwing the dough and all that stuff. Of course, I knew who Tony was, and it was just an honor to be there and to have him come into the restaurant. And he told me our pepperoni was good, so I love that. And there's little photo bombers in the background, but there's Scott, Tony, and myself. I've got one with my son in the middle, and my daughter's photo bombing in the background of that one too. But it was a fun night, and it was one of those things that Tony told me, and Scott said, you got to come to Pizza Expo. You got to see what this is all about. And this was in February of 14, and I couldn't go just yet. But when 2015 was starting to go around, and I was thinking about going to Pizza Expo. But in between here in Pizza Expo, what happened is we opened the second store, October 2014. And when that happened, it was one of those moments that this store, my wife was a waitress in high school there. And the pizza outlet was 100 yards away across the street. So when we heard this store was for sale, we said, great, we're going to go ahead and buy this store. And we just thought that it was such a good thing to go ahead and buy the store. And it became a great store right off the bat. And we put a lot of time in. It wasn't the kiss of death for us. It was so close to my house that we could run this one, we could run the one at home, or run the original one. Everything worked out great. And then in 2015, I went to the Pizza Expo. I took 3 guys with me. When we got there, we went ahead and saw how great everything was there, like how culinary the competitions were. And I think for anyone who's been to Pizza Expo, you feel like a kid in a candy shop the first time you go. It's just an awesome feeling. And that's how I felt. And when I came back from it, I really, listening to different things, listening to Tony in different seminars and listening to Michael Shepard in different seminars, and to those guys, I'll forever be grateful. They really so thankful to both of them for just planting the bug in me that Mike would say, hey, if you want to go ahead and compete in competitions, just do it. You need to try and win stuff. You're not going to win if you don't compete. And I went back to my friend who helped me out with the stuff and the recipes in the beginning, and I said, you know what? I watch these competitions and says, I don't think I could win these, but I know somebody who could. And I said, I also feel like, he could help me when we get to the third store of making sure everything's the same and all the charts and everything like that. And I went back and I said to my friend, who many of you know, Eric, who's down there competing right now. And I said to Eric, will you come over for dinner on Sunday? We're going to have some shish kebabs, which was normal because I was still is the godfather of his kids. And he came over and he thought he was coming for a normal dinner. And I said, I want you to join Caliente. And he was like, you're crazy. I'm a fine dining chef. There's no way I could be a pizza guy. It's just pizza. And I said, it's not just pizza. It's pizza's just the palate. It's the plate. And he agreed to join. And when he came in, I wrote down all the goals about, streamlining everything and getting everything, our inventory up to date, and trying to get us ready to open a third store. And also one of the goals was go to Pizza Expo and win the world championship. I don't know who writes that down on your opening first day. Hey, I want you to win this. But I was being clear, like there was things that we wanted to do. And I really believe in power of the pen and writing stuff down. Like I write all my goals down. It's very, very important to me. And we did. We went off to the first Pizza Expo, and Eric made a duck pizza, and he won. He won first place. And it was just an awesome feeling that we won first place there. It was unbelievable. I mean, they called his name, and we went crazy. The four of us had such a great time celebrating. For the next year, we created a culture inside the company where everybody wanted to compete. We went out to Pizza Expo. Well, I guess there was an in-between there. We opened a third store. And in between the expos, as soon as we come back from winning the championship, 10 days later, we opened up a new store, and within 4 days, we were able to turn it around. That was the other part of it, is we get in there, and independent guys like us don't have a ton of money to open stores. So I never believe in having a space and keeping it for 6 months and not opening it. You got to get in there and open it up as quick as you can. John Taffer does it on TV, and it might just be TV, but I don't think it is. We get in there, and within 4 days, we bring in plumbers, electricians, everything, and we open these things up quick. And that's kind of how we were able to do it. And then the next year we went out, we won another world championship. My general manager of the Mount Lebanon store won the world's largest pizza stretch, won a bunch of first place Northeast regions, and you could see we celebrated. It was just a great thing of Caliente for sure. And then we went ahead and came back from the championship in 2017, and it felt so good to be us. And I was like, well, okay, we got 3 stores. We just won the second championship. This is just the greatest thing. You know, this is just a great feeling. And what happened was I had one of those downfalls, you know, one that really stings you hard. The labor company, got guys working for me, my son and his friend, since second grade. They were working for me at 14, 15, and we got rid of a general manager, and he turned us in for those guys working to 9 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock. You know, and I didn't really even know it was that big of a deal. But when they come in, they look at everything. How do you pay your people and all this stuff? You know, and there were times where we did pay cash. You know, we were a young company, and there was times in my pizza career I got paid in cash. I thought it was just kind of the thing you did. And they said, oh, if you're honest and, you know, tell us what you owed, you know, we'll work a deal. Well, I was honest, but boy, it cost almost more than my first house, you know, and it was a big lesson. And I think the lesson is, you know, do everything the right way. Even when you think it's easy, it's not. You got to do it the right way. It was a very expensive lesson to learn. It was one of those things that you feel so good about everything, but I think it would have taken a lot of people down, would have wanted me to quit and go back to find that quote-unquote real job. But you just kept plugging along. That was the whole idea. We just kept moving forward and figured out, what can I do? Sales fixes everything. Time for a new store. That was the whole idea. I kind of said, we're going to open a new store and fund, you know, pay the labor department off. That's what we're going to do. And we did. We opened a new store. This one was 15 days, a little longer, but only because we had to wait for permits. And when we opened these stores up, it seemed like it's unbelievable. We do roughly $30,000 to $35,000 a week at each store. We open them up 2 weeks before we open. Nobody's there. We open up, line out the door. So right away, we're doing $35,000, $40,000 right out the gate. You know, seems like everything's fixed, and, you know, puts us in line for a great 2018. Went to the Pizza Expo. Eric made a Wagyu beef pizza. We had a great Pizza Expo, and he won again. So, I mean, everything's going great for Caliente. It just seems like it's just a great journey. It felt really good to be us again. The labor thing's kind of behind us. We've got the 4 stores. You know, we're always looking for another store, and it just was a awesome 2018. Everything comes full circle. Tony and Scott named me to the World Pizza Team, named Eric to the World Pizza Team. Pizza Today was now doing articles on us. That's our pizza on the front cover of last year's issue. It was awesome. For this guy who was, you know, a pizza guy who put everything in the past and then, you know, was humble about, okay, I'm just going to push the beer. It was full circle. Finally, we were getting recognized for the pizza, and I wasn't a beer guy anymore that I never wanted to be. I was a pizza guy again. It just felt great. Everything was perfect. This is probably like summer 2018. We're having a great year. Everything, nothing could go wrong. Well, in probably one of our darkest hours of Caliente in 2018, in October, I got a phone call, we're gonna show up on the news. Somebody who had worked at the shop over the summer that came in and wanted his job back, we weren't gonna hire him back because he never showed up on a Friday, had a picture of a bug in the store. And of course it was in the cheese. They ran it for days it felt like months. My kids didn't even go to school the next day. They ran it on the news, they ran it on the radio, there was on a frickin' billboard downtown on one of those digital changing ones, like featured stories, world pizza champions, bugs in the cheese, like awful. If there was a time to quit, that might have been it too. It just felt horrible. You try being this guy that everything's perfect, but it rocked us. It rocked us to the core. Like these guys who've been with me a long time, it hurt. But then we did what fixes everything. We opened another store. Why not? So this one, I got a short clip that kind of shows the new store.
Ready? You ready for it? I'm Angela Bogacz, and I am the person that is the other half of Nicholas Bogacz. We're the owners of Pizza and Draft House Caliente. We are rehabbing. We're rehabbing this location. It's hard work. It's exciting. This is my favorite part. This is the bar. This is what we're gonna do to the bar back here. This is super cool. We got a master craftsman that is gonna do all of the, redo all of the stained glass windows.
It used to be a steakhouse. We took out all the equipment and now we put it in our hood and we're getting ready to put our pizza oven in.
Who made it?
Jason Sauer, Most Wanted Fine Art. So we're out here at the new site of Caliente number 5 in Monroeville, and you might wonder, how does one resurrect the Caliente? Well, the secret behind it all is there's a woman at the helm. My wife is the head of construction here, doing all the, making sure the moving and the shaking and everything falls into place at the right timeline. She keeps all the guys, the plumbers, the electricians, the tile guys, the floor guys, and the whole reconstruction. She's the one to make sure that it all happens. So when you're gonna see the transformation, it's all Angie.
So then the new store is great. Like I said, we're doing about 30, 35,000. It felt horrible to be us. We opened up a new store. After the news, it felt horrible to be us. We opened up a new store 2 months later, $60,000 the first week. It felt awesome to be us. Awesome. We were like, everything was in the past. I kept saying to everybody at our meetings, we have monthly meetings, weekly meetings, bi-weekly meetings, lots of group meetings, right? Lots of meetings. And I would say, because I believe in words and the power of them, I would say, this is going to be our best year ever. 2019 is going to be our best year ever. And to say that after everything that happened in the news, I just said, I got to be positive about it. And I just kept saying, this is going to be our best year ever. We opened up a new store, record weeks, blowing it out the water. We went to Parma, Italy with the World Pizza teams. Made a lot of great friendships for sure. A lot of guys that are here today. It was just fantastic. Eric took home the first place for the Americans there. The best thing that came out of the news was I hired a PR firm to take care of the negative press. But I kept them on because I realized that what they can do is put the good press out there. So when we won the best pizza over there, best pizza in America, they put this out locally to everywhere. And our sales rose 65%. I mean, these guys will tell you it was crazy. The pizza had rapini and porchetta on it. Nobody in Pittsburgh even knows what that is. But we were selling so much rapini and so much porchetta on these pizzas, it was just insane. The stores are still way up. The original store that took a huge hit in sales, that had the issue on the news, they're way up for this year. The whole company's super positive. We're talking 30, 40% over last year. We're having a great 2019. Eric and I just went off to Naples, Italy for a tournament over there. Oh, not that picture, but this picture here, where he took third place last week over in Naples for his pizza. It's just been a great time to be us again. I think our guys really enjoyed to see everything come full circle. We're seeing all the hard work of our managers paying off, the new stores, create all kind of opportunity. Every time we open a new store, we bring on, usually we try and keep people from the store that's been there, or we hire new people. We bring in great people to our organization that way. It's just been an awesome experience seeing everything the way the 2019 has really truly been our best year ever. And Caliente's future in the industry in 2020 and beyond, and my take is, for Caliente, we're going to keep doing the best we can every single day. And when we can buy new stores, we're going to buy new stores and, create opportunities. The whole idea was for people not to have to go and try and find that quote unquote real job, that we can have a real career here for them. And that as we build stores and build positions, that they can work their way up in our company and be able to support their families. And I used to think when we first started to be successful, I thought, if I could do three things before we bought Caliente, if we could not drive a car from the last century, if we could buy a bigger house, and if we could figure out how to pay for our kids for college, because they were getting older. And real quickly after the first year, I said, you know what? That's not how I'm going to be judged if I'm successful. How it'll be is the people who work for me, if they can do those things for their family, then I'll know I'm successful. So that's really what I focused on. And that's why we keep opening the stores. I don't have to open another store for me. I do it so we can build career opportunities in the pizza industry for our people. And I think really when you start looking at the industry, when I went to give this keynote, when I found out I was going to give it, I had asked Tony, I said, can you give me a little bit of advice on the keynote? And Tony's not just great for advice on how to make a better pizza or the dough or the acrobats or anything like that. Tony's just in tune with everything. And he just looked at me and gave me a 15-minute impromptu how to give a keynote. And he told me, he says, you got to include something about the industry at the end, the future of it. And I thought back to Tony about 4 years ago in Vegas. He gave a keynote, and at the end, he talked about the industry. And what he predicted was Uber Eats. He talked about it. Everybody here knows, it's kind of a dirty word, right? But he predicted it 4 or 5 years ago at his keynote. He said, I'm in San Francisco. I'm seeing this. It's going to be a huge thing. It's going to rock the industry. And he was right. And I think the thing that I kind of want to play off of that is, learn something from what I'm doing. I really thought being a pickup and delivery guy my whole life that's the kind of shop I was going to have. For whatever reason, I ended up with the restaurant side of it. And I really think that what's going to happen is the Delcos are going to take a huge hit like they have. It's going to be even harder than what's going on right now. And you've got to put seats in your pizzerias. That's my take. I think that's where the industry is going. If you could put alcohol in there, I think you have to. You have to make it not just a place where you can just come in and get pickup and delivery. It has to be a full service restaurant. You have to embrace that. The word restaurant for me was really hard. I didn't really know that we were a restaurant. I always felt like we were a pizzeria. But you have to embrace that and say, we're going to become a restaurant. We're going to figure out how all this thing works and make pizza the main course. We've seen burgers become super, super popular across the country. What the industry has now is great pizza makers. We see that every year at these competitions. And the pride and the passion they put into making the pizzas, that's what you have to, it's better than a pickup and delivery product. You have to make it to where it's your full service restaurant. That's where I see everything happening, is I think that you have to get back to where when you think of your next project, opening up your next store, you have to think about, how can I get seats in there? How can I make it bigger? How can I fit in wait staff and stuff like that, because what we've been able to do is because we're a full service restaurant. You know, all the sales that we do, that's why. I thought about opening Caliente Expresses, just pick up and delivery, but with my experience and knowing the delivery game, I just don't think that that's where the industry is going. I think that's a thing of the past. I think the future is, you know, people are going to want a really good product. We've seen farm to table and everything else. I think you're going to see that they want to go to a restaurant and enjoy a beer and a pizza and enjoy them together in a restaurant environment. And, you know, I think just to kind of bring everything together, you know, if I could just get everybody to stand up for one moment, you know, I just wanted to kind of let everybody know when you get down and something's really tough and you're there in your business and you just think, you know what, I'm ready to quit. I'm ready to give up. I want everybody to remember that you don't need to go and find that real job. You have the best career that you possibly could have. This room's filled with people in this industry that love it just like you do. So next time you think, do I have to get a real job or give up? Don't ever, ever, ever give up. I challenge you to think about standing up for what you believe in and really just going back and making the best pizza you possibly can. Put your passion into it, put your pride into it, and never, ever give up. You have a real career already. Don't give up. Thank you so much. Thank you.